Is this the biggest year in power creep we've ever had? Summoners, we're going to talk about all the crazy stuff that has happened, but I've got with me the one, the only, Phoenix Master One. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and I'm actually really excited for our yearly tradition of covering the power creep, and this time we've got a different meter, so yeah, that's going to be fun.
It has been dizzying this year. It's been absolutely crazy, but I'm just looking at this last year in Feh, and we had Attuned Heroes and Emblem Heroes and Ike and Leon and Breath of Life and the Celica Ring, and Okay, so in your opinion, what was your favorite change? And don't include Auto Affinity Battle, because I know that was actually your favorite, but other than that, what was your favorite change of this last year?
Definitely the Emblem Heroes, because they're just so fun and they give you so much value to your entire barracks. I feel like they're the closest to what we have as unskippable heroes, because even if you're a casual player, they're just amazing. And yeah, definitely was fun to face Emblem Ike, and still is with all of the upgrades that he seems to be getting.
It's like fodder that you only have to summon for once, and then you can give it to your entire barracks. It's really incredible.
Yeah, and the fact that they bring new skills with them, like Lagu's Friend, Resonance, and even Potent to a degree, it's definitely pretty amazing. And at least now we see that we are getting those skills on other units, so you don't necessarily have to fodder that Emblem hero.
Definitely, and I do like that they're giving us that fodder more, but I need to know in the comments, what was you guys' favorite change of this year? Leave it down below. Was it United Warfront? Was it when Duo Leon got countered twice? Was it something else? Let me know in the comments, and we're gonna move on and talk about what this rubric is. And the first year we gave you the Edel scale. Last year we gave you the Tiki tally, and this year it's the Ico meter. So, PM1, who's your favorite Ike?
I think my favorite Ike definitely has to be Brave Ike. It was just so amazing when we got him on the first year, and then he got the resurgence with his insane weapon refine, and I believe he was the first unit to have that kind of damage reduction in his weapon for like the year 1 standard. So for me, he is the iconic Ike of Feh.
I could not agree more, and I've been meaning to make a video where I revamp him, but I haven't had the time recently. I would love to see him rise to supremacy again, although I think in today's meta that might be very, very hard. Just to go over basically what we're looking at, we've got the Emblem Ike, which is basically the power spike. This is where things absolutely change and you have to reorient to that unit. The next up, we have the Brave Ike, and I'm really talking more about on release here and not his refine. He was definitely meta influential in a variety of modes and could be used in a ton of places. We have Fallen Ike, who is right about that standard line of power creep that makes teams better. Then we have Young Ike, who is a unique contributor. And of course, Valentines Ike, which I keep forgetting exists, which is why the tagline there. So let's move on. We're going to rate each of these units and skill sets based on this system here. I do want to talk a little bit about our sample size. So we are going from February to August. And the reason is PM1 is a very, very busy man and has to get back to all of the stuff he has to do. We also don't want to make a 3-hour episode, so we cut this down to a smaller set. With that said, this being February to the Brave Banner, I want to go ahead and move into our first month, which is February. And Valentine's is always an interesting time. I've got to ask, PM1, did you think the Lucia apocalypse was going to last longer?
I definitely thought she would, but seeing as how she was a sword infantry unit, it was inevitable that her demise was gonna be, coming at certain point. But she's still pretty unique, and like she was the Omni tank when she came out, and not something that we had seen before.
She was incredible, and I actually thought the new version of Lucia was going to be better, and once we actually got her, I was a little disappointed with her performance. Basically, she ended up being Kanto Curb Stomp fodder, and that was about it. But that's with that. We also had Legendary Robin, who I still think can contribute, but it's weird to look back at these units. And at the time, we had these ranked at 5-star. This was really pretty good. The skills, on the other hand, were not as good. How are you feeling about these in today's light?
Yeah, I think Dragon's Roar and Soaring Echo are just staples on so many builds. Scowl is something that we had seen before, and Devoted Basket was a game changer for so many mages because having such a strong weapon before Breath of Life 4 was amazing, and I definitely fell for it with my Summer Mercedes.
I mean, I always love when you get new toys for your Summer Mercedes, and that is a lot of fun. I think these skills were actually pretty great. The Devoted Basket might have been our best inheritable red tome ever. How do you feel about that statement?
Yeah, it's really hard to match up to its offensive prowess, and pre-Breath of Life, it was just no chance that other red tomes were gonna live up to that. But after Breath of Life 4, Soaring Echo is still gonna be strong. Dragon's Roar is a very good skill, especially if your dragon doesn't have a slaying weapon, so it could work with Lagoose Friend. And even if you have minus and special cooldown, it's still helpful for its unpierceable damage reduction. And February is when we get a meta-influential green mage, it seems. So both Duo Leon and Legendary Male Robin just shook up the game, and now we still have Valentine Myrrh taking advantage of skills like Shield Fighter.
It was weird. I looked, and I believe we had 8 total armors released in this generation so far, which is incredibly low. And I believe 2 of them were GHBs. It meant that Myrrh has been an incredible investment, and because of because of what she does as well. I mean, stopping the warping has just been amazing. I really want to focus in on Dual Leon here because of how the community in general was not happy with this. How do you feel in general about the knowledge checks that IS has been releasing every year? And this was a term introduced to me by, I believe, Oblivion, and it's basically if you don't understand how this unit works, you lose, and you think of Fallen Edelgard and the like. So how do you feel about that with Dual Leon?
I think he was the peak of that with the toxicity, with the end turning, and especially in Summoner duels, he was just everywhere. And it was not really all that hard for him to be used in even Ether Raid's offense. You would just kill off the enemy units and then use his insane duo skill, and that would just shut off any kind of extraction. So it was incredible to be using him, but it was so unfun to be on the receiving end.
Absolutely. It's always not fun when they make it a way for you to not play with your units. They're just done. They're turned off. You don't get to touch that unit. It was a recipe for frustration, I thought. Yeah,
it's definitely the least friendly type of way, especially for a newer player to have access to this kind of skill, which just prevents them from playing the game. And in competitive game modes, he was just absolutely everywhere, and he had multiple things going on for him. The sweep effect, the pre-combat damage, which had no checks at that time. So it was like you didn't need to just beat him at one level, but at multiple fronts.
If we look at the total for this month, now we had a 4-star with the skills and a 5-star with the units. That brings us up to a 9 and 7. Mainly because of the skills, we have February of 2024 really pulling into the lead right there, which, I mean, with a unit like Duo Leon, that completely makes sense. Let's move us into March and talk about the bunny banners, though. Coming up on this. Now, in 2023, the main highlight was Tana and Guidance 4. How do you feel that skill in particular, Guidance 4, has aged, looking at it now?
Honestly, I think that it has not aged that well because we have got Soaring Echo and also Soaring Guidance, so those are just the better skills. And back for its time, it was definitely the skill of the year for the banner, and Tana herself is still pretty unique. Like, you can use her to engage with the Gale Force strategies, but this year it was just insane with Emblem Ike and Lagu's Friend being a preferred skill essentially that other units could get, and it just revitalized a lot of favorites.
Oh, absolutely. And it's something I really enjoyed with Ike is the ability to actually have tanks survive. We did have some downsides to that. There were some units that felt unkillable, and Ike in particular had at the beginning there, it basically felt like in both Aether Raids and in pieces of Summoner Duels, if you brought Ike, you just won. Do you feel like this unit was overtuned, or do you feel like they just let it be overtuned for a hot minute?
I think it was definitely overtuned by choice, and is still overtuned, I think, with all of the tools that he has got, like with fortifications and creation pulse especially. So he was just really insane at that time, and back then I remember people would use Fatal Smoke units to at least stop a bit of his healing, but it was not really all that viable after Breath of Life 4.
Fatal Smoke 4 stocks went way up. That was an incredibly valuable skill during that time. But Lagu's Friend 4 is such an interesting thing for older units. Do you feel like it's possible to use those right now, or is Ike just the standard and most other Omni tanks are just hurting?
I think it's definitely possible to use those older units, but they need to bring some other things like already present flat damage reduction with their weapon or something like that. Because Lagu's Friend is insane for what it is, but we just need more things nowadays. And one skill is not going to be doing the entire heavy lifting.
Absolutely. We had a couple other things in here. I really liked Sita. I still think Sita is a fantastic alternate tank to Ike. She definitely brought us the distant counter with bonus doubler and a lot of other great things.
Yeah, they have definitely been up in the value, especially with Attuned Erica. And Attuned Sita was the unit to print Lagu's Friend that I just introduced, so she just came at the perfect time.
We've got a nice perfect 10 for our 2024. And for 2023, we've got about a 7. So we're already up to a 19 in March. We are really moving along quickly with the amount of power creep that we're seeing. So in April, we have the incredibly controversial Kid Banners. And there weren't a whole lot of highlights that we look at from 2023. How do you feel about Armored Beacon right now? Because I know this was actually a spot where we had, I won't say a disagreement, but I definitely was higher on Armored Beacon. And you were the one who cautioned me that it wasn't quite as amazing as I thought it was.
The thing is that it is a special susceptible to Hush Spectrum and also Scowl. And now that we have got Shield Fighter, if you want to survive, then you want to run the defensive specials. And with Armored Beacon and Armored Flow as a special, it's only going to be there once per combat. And then we have Shield Fighter just giving you the protection against the Bravets and everything. So I definitely prefer those specials over the armored specials, unless you absolutely want to use a damaging special.
It is ridiculous how good Shield Fighter is, and I have learned throughout my years that it is always a good idea to listen to PM1. That's good things happen. So we move on to 2024, and we have Duo Robin and Emerin. And one of the things I've been noticing is that the amount of units that they kind of take a breather on has been reduced greatly, particularly when I look at Emerin. And we've talked about Duo Robin a ton and how amazing this unit is. Do you feel like Emerin is the sleeper of the year?
Oh, for sure. I think she is just amazing for Aether Raid's offense and even for Aether Raid's defense. But the highlight was definitely young female Robin and the action economy that she opened up. And then she got access to firm Canticorp, so that's also another skill that she can use. And she's just so flexible and amazing for pretty much any competitive game mode that you definitely want to get her.
I think we've learned that whoever does skills for Crom really, really loves him. Like it is continually, all Croms are just good. I mean, that's just it, right?
Absolutely. After earlier years, they decided to just make Chrom insane with any kind of assist skill that he brings to the table, except for Fallen Chrom. But even then, it was useful, and Duo Female Robin is just nothing short of amazing.
Absolutely. There's one other thing, and they've been quietly giving healers more and more skills and more things. Do you feel like they are... do you feel like this is their peak, or do you feel like they're going to keep on giving healers stuff?
I think healers are going to be drip feeding with maybe attuned Wrathful Staff or Dazzling Staff. That's something I'm looking forward to, because healers can run the damage reduction piercing skills, but you want to run the staff skills as well. So I think we're going to be seeing more of that. But Magic Shield Plus was a pretty insane skill for the action economy for something like Summoner Duels, and it is the assist skill you want to have on your healer if you're trying to max invest with them.
Absolutely. I use it a lot on Aether's defense, and it helps a ton for a lot of those. Well, a lot of the healers are hitting harder now, so they're actually contributing, which is fantastic. But it's been a lot of fun to see that, and I hope they continue to give those units more things, because for so long it seemed like they were just scared of them.
Yeah, they are also skipped with the weapon refines and such, so I definitely feel like they're just feeding a couple of skills every now and again. And outside of healers, we didn't really have much in terms of the skills this month, with Dazzling Discord having that resistance check, and then Bulwark skill, it's decent, but then again we have so many ways of getting healing, and Magic Gambit is probably one of the flop skills of this entire year. It just came at such a wrong time after Lagoo's Friend, so I guess you could try and run this on cavalry mages, but are they really going to be able to survive the modern nukes? Probably not.
I feel like they made this skill back in August and then said, oh, we'll just wait a few months, and didn't realize that they had countered it with just everything in the entire meta. It's kind of insane. Yeah,
it's a skill you never really see many people using. Even in holo forms, people just skip this. So that's how bad it is for Magic Gambit.
Yeah, even with all those healer skills, we still have those at a solid 3 stars there, which, if you remember, is a nice steady rate of power creep as opposed to the super accelerated that we've seen in a lot of the other areas. Brings us into the Ico meter, which is at a 27 for 2024 and a 21 for 2023. So 2024 is already in a very solid lead in April. Next, we have the Bridal Banner, which was one of my favorites this year, but let's talk about 2023 first, with Bridal Tiki, who with Shield Fighter has also gotten a glow up, but we gave this a 5 stars at the time. I mean, Legendary Hinoka is still good, even though we've got the new Air Order skill. Maria is interesting. The big question I have, though, is when we look at these skills, and I think we all want to know, when are you going to upgrade your Gale Force team with Wings of Mercy 4?
I think it's just way too expensive, and I think Wings of Mercy 3 is fine, and we have got Brave Felix, who can easily fall into that range. So I think I'm going to be sticking with the version 3, because I barely seem to even get the copies of that.
PM1, we need as a community to see you splurge on yourself now and again. I'm just saying, like, this seems like something you would just love.
Oh, absolutely. I think Wings of Mercy 4 was such a big upgrade, and I remember like many people using, like before Brave Felix, original version of Edelgard, and the reason why she was able to function so well was because she would fall into the Wings of Mercy 4 range with her extraction. So that wouldn't be possible without it.
Oh, it was perfect. I actually used that setup. It's a lot of fun, but we're gonna get into 2024 here, and I mean, I've got to ask, is Sharena the greatest unit you've ever seen? The answer is yes, right?
Yeah, after talking to you, yeah, probably, yeah.
You all, I think the entire audience heard the pause there. I appreciate you giving me that one. I think this is an incredible unit, along with Nurgle. I think Nurgle's really the one we talk about when we look at meta influential, though. Sharena's amazing. Nurgle, the whole ability to take away skills, though, how do you feel about that?
I think it's a great equalizer, because we just had so many visible status effects just go unchecked. I mean, we did have Duo Thor in Summoner Duels with her Duo button, but Nurgle is just so powerful and stops any kind of spam of those visible status effects. And I love how he's designed, even though he's kind of toxic, but I feel like he is the necessary kind of toxic that we needed. And the skills of this month were absolutely amazing, with High Dragon Wall randomly having more score in Arena, which no one saw coming, but I guess that's helpful when you've got Emblem Celica units running around. And Attack Speed XL is just insane with its flat damage reduction, and we have got so many 4-movement Cavaliers, and Verge of Death and Crystalline Water was also something not a lot of people expected, but they're just amazing upgrades.
They are. This is a really solid lineup here. I will say, back on Nurgle, I like that kind of power creep because or that kind of toxicity, as you said it, because there is play and counterplay to it. When we look at the skills, though, it is interesting to me to look at High Dragon Wall, and I haven't been a huge fan of the arena changes lately, especially when you look at someone like Legendary Shez just flying across the map. It's been interesting, and especially for a mode that I feel like they had worked on a lot with the tickets and everything else. So I'm curious, what do you think the next arena point bump is going to be?
I think they're probably going to be having tier 4 version of the save skills, and save skills already score high in arena even at their version 3, so a tier 4 version of it is probably going to be taking some inspiration from High Dragon Wall. And you already know, in arena we have so many armors that people use as part of their core, so to make armors a bit better, they're probably going to be doing that.
That terrifies me. So we're basically, dragon armors are going to be even more prevalent. So if you've got those invested, this is yet another reason why Valentine's Myrrh has been so valuable. She's also an excellent score bot. I am curious to see if that comes to pass, and it sounds like it makes way too much sense, so it probably will. If we look at the icometer here, we're up to a 9 points in May and a 36 total, where we're still looking at a mere 30 for the Bridal Banner.
Yeah, this month was just insane with the unit strength and the skills. And now we have got the summer, which a lot of people wait for. And this year definitely didn't disappoint.
It absolutely didn't. I look at 2023. I actually think Duo Shamir stayed good for a very long time. That was a nice unit. I think we got a little bit of a glimpse of what supportive nukes could be, but it is tough to remember how influential that magical and physical no follow-up were. Like the piercing in the B skill was incredible before we just got piercing with absolutely every weapon and Lagoose Ren 4 and everything else. But is it weird to look back at these things that were so influential that have now just completely disappeared?
Yeah, they seem like small bumps now, looking back on them. But for its time, it was just insane with the damage reduction that we had gotten. So inhitable damage reduction piercing, which could be stacked up with other effects, was just really strong. And they kind of tried to follow that with resonance, but it does fail in some aspects. But still, I kind of like it on the flying mages that you could try and run this on. And also the cavalry mages, which didn't really have access to magical non-follow-up.
Definitely. I'm locked in on these units here, and I am amazed at, of these three, the least powerful is Summer Gulvig, who's a ranged unit who can get 4 actions. Like this lineup is one that makes me think that I need to add another star. Like, these are incredible units. Celica, absolutely, as a unit and as a range, has absolutely changed the game. Micaiah is still one of the best units in the game, and Gulvig I still use her quite a bit. I think this unit is incredible. What do you think the best unit out of this month was?
Definitely Attune Micaiah. The utility that she brings is insane, and the fact that you don't even have to run her with any kind of warping skill, and she already has that in the weapon, just makes her so flexible. And Breath of Life 4 came at a perfect time in that same banner, and she's an attuned unit, so you could easily pass on the skill to other units. And this was the time where they overcorrected, I think, a bit more than they should have on the pre-combat damage, just completely running it over with the insane healing of Breath of Life. And it's not even just the healing, the Deep Wounds nullification that you've got is also really, really strong. And you also give this to the allies. So this was the month of just duplicating a lot of Breath of Life and giving it to your tanks.
It's a really intense month, and I mean, these wave skills are really good. I feel like they're slept on, but these are fantastic skills. But what do you think they're going to do about the insane amount of warping here? Do you think we're just going to get more saves and that is their answer? Because Celica Ring has absolutely changed the way we play at least Aether Raids, but probably every mode.
Yeah, Celica Ring was, in my opinion, the most toxic thing that we have seen in an arena for this year, and we just got Emblemite. But the thing is that you could have Celica Ring just popping up on like 7 matches of your arena assault and just spooking you and just ruining your run. So I feel like at the time of the release, a lot of people didn't value it that much, but playing against that just quickly became really, really annoying.
I feel like they have a plan that they're probably going to sell us to help counter that. We'll see in the coming months, but I am very curious how that goes. Now, we talked about the incredible power of this 2024. Obviously, we've got a 10 there, bringing us up to a 46. We also had a very strong June for 2023, though, so we're staying neck and neck. But let's move on to Summer Part 2. And here's where things get a little interesting. And do you think we're just gonna get an absolutely broken mythic every July? Because both Hathrin and Freyr are absolutely meta-defining.
Yeah, I think they need to do that before Chooser Legends to push players to summon on the banner before it. And this time we had the double mythic, and Ictanir was also really, really amazing. And he is so tanky, deceptively tanky, and also brings a really amazing and much awaited fodder with Fierce Beast. So I think they're going to be continuing this tradition in July, and Hathrin is pretty much the Freyr of this year. You don't want to miss her, and you want to have her in your Aether Raids defense and also in Summoner Duels. And with Brave Sorin, Lagoo's friend, she does not die to things. You have to waste so many actions just to kill her.
I have started seeing her in Arena, which is absolutely terrifying. Really, really do not like to see that. So she is she is something. Absolutely. Ictanir, do you feel like this unit would have been better in another season other than Astra?
I think he's pretty nice in Astra season, being the way he is, like a really strong cleanup unit. And I kind of like him a lot more in Summoner Duels, where he can just give you that bonus doubler and you don't really have to fear for the ploy skills all that much. So the stat stacking is really good, and he himself can be a checkmate type of unit if you don't have the right tools to kill him with. But Hathrin definitely carries this month on her back.
You guys heard it here first. Deer Boy is one of PM1's favorite SD units, so we'll be awaiting the PM1 tier list with Deer Boy up at the very top. I find it incredible that we have given the skills 4 stars, and we have a null counter disrupt echo in there. Like, this is really what drives home what power creep is looking like at this point. Because, I mean, even a year ago, that would have been easily 5 stars, and we would have been talking about this being the most absolutely insane thing possible. How are you feeling about the echo skills in general, the attuned skills?
I think they're going to be just increasing in value really, really fast. Like, we got Deathblow Echo, and then we quickly got Soaring Echo, and now we have got Null Counter Disrupt Echo. And this is definitely the best skill for any kind of tank, but the thing is that a lot of the sweep effects and the sweep units have kind of gone down in the value. You don't really see that much of Legendary Hinoka or Duo Leon, especially after the skills that were present before this month. And Gust is a pretty nice option, but still, I mean, Godlike Reflexes does work out, and the even attack and even resistance wave are pretty good tech options, just like the other wave skills.
It's interesting, and I'm curious as they continue to give us some of these skills, what else we'll get. I do like that they gave Beasts finally a decent skill in Fierce Beast, but if we look at the Icometer, again, we are both at 9, so we are neck and neck for this. We still have a commanding 6-point lead for 2024, though. And that brings us to August, which is always an interesting month with Brave units and everything else. It is hard not to give these units 5 stars. Fast forward to a year from now. Which one of these 2023 Brave units do you think is going to be the one that we talk about?
I think it's probably going to be Galvik, I feel like, because she is still pretty good. I mean, Corin has kind of fallen off with her Stone Terrain being stolen by Lumera, but at least she has got the tech options now with High Dragon Wall and Shield Fighter. And Brave Soren is still really good, so I think he's going to be getting a Tame Refine, and he's going to be staying good. This year, I feel like we didn't really get those insane skills that we usually get on these Choose Your Legends units. Like Flared Sparrow was absolutely meta-defining. This time we just have some neat options with Creation Pulse and Fortifications, and then Reopening kind of repeats the whole thing with Magic Gambit just being at the wrong time, at the wrong place. But it's useful for some of the units.
I mean, Flared Sparrow was the first piece of burn damage that we got. Like that was kind of a big deal, and it's still an excellent skill on units now, even with Breath of Life 4 coming out. What I will say is that Alphonse's fodder is a lot of fun, and we gave it a 3-star rating there. I think that's good, but the units that you can just hand off Alphonse's kit directly and then make a scam showcase is kind of incredible, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's just incredible that his fodder crashed the game with Panette, so he definitely takes the cake with that. We also got Firm Canter Curb, which I feel like kind of goes in the same category as Roost Force skills, where it's just that the presence of it is going to be enough to warrant not using certain units and not its actual usage. So you can still work fine with Canter Control 3, but if you really want to go and just curb stomp Dual Leon, then it is always there as an option.
I think you said it perfectly there. And it's not a necessary summon, but just the fact that it's there has devalued a lot of units. Unfortunately, one of those is my Sather, and it makes me cry a little bit, but that's okay. I still think Sather can be used, and yeah, let me have my copium there. We need to talk about these units though, and I mean, you've already mentioned Felix, and it's hard not to talk about Felix because I think this is a really well-designed unit and how fun he is to use. How are you feeling about the way they've tried to balance this by releasing both Felix, who speeds the game up, and Robin, who slows the game down?
Yeah, I definitely like how they have done that, but I'm not sure if Felix is a well-designed unit, completely ignoring any kind of traps in either way it's offense, making it a joke. But he is definitely incredibly fun to use in any game mode, and he's just so strong that I feel like we're going to be getting some kind of counter to the extractions, which I definitely don't want to see as a Gale Force enthusiast, but I think it's probably on the way, like we have seen with the hard counters to pre-combat damage and then to Dual Leon. So I think Felix is probably going to be having the best time until then.
You understand what that means, right? Felix's best C skill is gonna be Firm Kanto Curb Stomp. So we'll see how that ends up going. But Robin is such an interesting thing with Divine Vein Ice, and I feel like that is the way that they are trying to counter a lot of these player face strats, and I know they are your absolute favorite. So is this a unit that you just hate?
Yeah, I kind of don't like the ice terrain. I think it's really annoying to go up against. It's kind of nice on either its defense, but I think the novelty is going to be probably running out as we see the same case with Corin and Lumera, where we already have Duo Fiorm just setting up more ice terrain that lasts for 2 turns. But I still think that female Robin is going to be having a place because she is a really strong nuke, and at least she's able to give out the Hush Spectrum as a start of turn debuff.
She is an excellent unit, and I've been using her quite a bit and enjoying it. I wonder, so the interesting thing when you look at Faye, one of the things I've always noticed is that visually it is a very well-designed game. It looks really good. And I feel like these terrain effects are the exception to that because they make it hard for me to see the terrain at times. It drives me nuts. So I'm curious where they go with that, but surely we're getting a terrain cleansing unit here soon, right?
Yep, just like Duo Thor erasing all of the visible status effects, we're probably going to be getting that kind of unit, at least for Summoner Duels. I don't think we're going to be seeing it that much for Ether Raids, but yeah, nowadays with anything that is really, really good and too good, I feel like its expiry date is probably there at some point.
I used to say that kind of thing was about 6 months out, and now I've brought that into probably within 2 months with how fast things are moving. And we've seen that just looking at the 2023 units. Like, things move very, very fast right now. That brings us up to a 63 for the 2024 stuff and a 59 for the 2023, which makes this look close. But I wanted to dig more into this, and this is looking at just the hero comparison units. We have a pretty commanding lead with a 6 more in the icometer than we had for the Tiki Tally. Do you feel like the preference weapon creep has been that much stronger this year?
Yeah, there's just more things that a unit has to do. Tune Micaiah, I think, is a pretty good example of that. She just does everything, like provides you warping, nukes everything, gives you the cleansing. It's just so many things that a unit has to do nowadays. It's definitely the creep that we're seeing now.
And it feels like it's in all areas. I mean, we talked about in Gale Force, but now, essentially, if you don't get 2 extra actions, then you are a tier or 2 below the top level of Gale Force units, which is crazy.
Yeah, and if you're a nuke, then you are going to be having insane warping like Emblem Celica and Paz built in, like her and Legendary Milches. So again, it's just stacking up a lot of things. Even someone like Attuned Erica, who's not really all that insane of a unit in the grand scheme of things, she just does a lot of things as well. She can tank, she can vantage, so we're trying to see these kinds of units where they're just able to fulfill multiple roles, and I think we kind of see that with the Brave units this year.
You brought up an interesting term that I had never heard before, and I carried it through this entire year, and that was complexity creep. And that was, I feel like that has been accelerated to an insane point at this time. I have a hard time telling new people how to start with this game, because there are so many little nuances that there are times when I don't remember all the little things going on. Where would you tell a new player to start? Like, is that Aether Raids? Would you tell them to start with Summoner Duels or Arena?
I would definitely tell them to start after they fall asleep and before they wake up. So that is the opportune time for playing Fae in your dreams. So this is really, really player unfriendly, new player unfriendly type of game. And it's kind of hard to recommend people. And that's one of the things that it's like the downfall of Fae, where you see with many games, like even with games that have stayed there for many, many years, new players are going to be coming in, and power creep is something that we see, but this kind of complexity creep is just really overwhelming at the first sight, even if the text itself isn't really all that much. Like, they never really say, this unit has got null follow-up. They just describe what null follow-up does. So I think they have to kind of get out of that habit if they really want new players with maybe an upcoming Fire Emblem game. It's really hard to keep up with the amount of text and the variables that you have to just have in your mind.
What I'm hoping for in this next year is a lot of quality of life type of things. I already think they've done a good job with the fact that you can hover over and see the amount of effects that is on a unit. I think that's a good start, but I would love to see them adopt more of your style of skill descriptions. I feel like the iconography you're using is fantastic. I feel like it's already built in the game, and I feel like that is something that would at least make things more approachable.
They should also, try and have some kind of PvE mode that can try and make it fun for the players to use their older units, because it might feel a bit suffocating at times in the competitive game modes. Like, your old favorite from 2017 is probably not going to be matching up to a +10 Emblem Ike, so I feel like there should be some breathing room with the PvE game modes, which they should be doing, and Tear Snare was a pretty good step in the right direction in my opinion.
I do want to talk a little bit about power spikes. And this is something we talked a bit about as our conversations went on. But if you look at kind of a standard power creep level, is that just nice linear progression. And you want power creep in your game because you want it to progress. Don't want it to be utterly flat. And occasional power spikes are nice if they're well done. But I personally feel like what we've seen is a constant re-evaluation of where that curve is, such that we're almost at an exponential level. And I don't know how they keep this up. How are you feeling about this?
I think the speed of it has already been accelerated, which they can only go back upon. I think they will have to keep up with it, because if they don't, then you see players just losing the interest because the units are not really all that insane and they don't really move the needle that much. And like, people are kind of disappointed nowadays if a unit doesn't really live up to the expectation. So I think that's really hard to go back upon. So they should probably try and slow the pace going forward at the very least, which we kind of saw with, with Festival Lucia, and how, she didn't really have that many upgrades, and even you yourself didn't really find her that amazing, and she was kind of underwhelming. So that's pretty much the thing that you want to avoid, and there's a really sweet spot. I'm not sure where it is, but they kind of have to figure out and just balance it.
It's one of the things, and you talked about a PvE mode, but I think that would help so much, because it would open up additional design space, and it would mean that they would have more breadth to work with as opposed to depth, because constantly stacking on stats and effects is really tough for the game in general. When we look at the skill creep, and this was an interesting thing, because I looked at this, and this basically says that it was about the same for 2023 and 2024. I didn't feel like that felt right, and so I had to really dig into this. So the other way I wanted to look at this is the amount of equipables we're getting, and that's I decided to put it that way with the additional attuned and emblem skills. And this is what really drove it home for me, where we had Gen 4 and Gen 5, we had a nice baseline of about 85 new things you could put on your units per year, and we're up to 113 new things. And it is incredible to think that this is where all the design time is going into this game, is 113 new things. And a lot of these are very influential, if not just good. I would love to see them spend time on other things, but this is a lot. Do you feel like this is going to go up next year?
I think it's probably going to be going up by a little bit, but you carefully have to navigate it by just identifying the top 3 or top 5 skills of each year. For this year, it has been Breath of Life, Lagu's Friend, and also Shield Fighter. So if you can give those skills to your even older units, they're just going to be functioning a lot better. So 113 is a really high amount, but I don't think a lot of those skills are really that of a hit. Like, we have got magic gambits of these kinds of groups. So there are going to be a couple of skills that you really need to just laser your focus on.
I think that is an excellent way to say that. And that gets really hard in a game that's moving this fast, is to laser focus on what are the must summon units and what are the must summon skills. It gets tough. I wanted a quick glance at the power creep in 2024, and this is, now keep in mind, this is our scale here. So a bit of this is subjective and that those things happen. But it is still interesting to look at the 20% preference weapon creep since 2023. If we look back to 2022, there's a 36% skill power creep. And if we just look at equipables, there are 31% more equipables since 2021. I mean, we've already talked about it, but this is a lot. This is an incredible amount of stuff here. I want to move us right into what do you do about this, though, because that is really, again, we like this game. We like to play it, and we have to deal with what they're bringing to us. I think the first thing, and I've got your asker here because I know this is one of your favorites. The first thing is to limit merge projects, and I've got my personal take on this. Who do you think the must-summon units are, though? I
kind of stand firm on Emblem heroes because I don't think there is any other type of heroes that are consistently that high value to your entire barracks, at least until, we get like 8-10 rings, and then we start to see the power creep among the rings. But until then, they are, I feel like, the absolute must-summons, and yeah, limiting merge projects is definitely the way to go because merges have really lost the value over the time. You don't really need plus and merges on a modern unit to function at their peak performance. Plus and merges, a lot of times I find, are just cosmetic things. They really want you to have that plus 10 beside your level on your unit, so I think that is the main draw. The thing I'm having trouble there is that's one of the quintessential Feh things. We're really one of the quintessential Fire Emblem things is taking that one unit and building that up. So I feel like that is something that is tough with the player base. Like that is the unit that you want the most in the world may not be good in another month. I still think offensive mythics hold their value. Are you worried that they're going to power creep the offensive mythics to a point that you need to get new ones? I hope not, but that would definitely not be that good for, all of us just building up the merge projects over the years. But yeah, you kind of have to trade. If you invest so much into a seasonal unit to the plus and merge, which for some people that is absolutely going to be the thing that you should be doing, but then you're not going to be having access to those one-off units, which is fine, but you have to kind of consider it as a trade, in my opinion. It's really tough. But the last thing I will say is there are usually about once a year they have just an absolutely incredible Grail unit. And I've got Panette up here, and I think she's really fantastic. And I think that is another way. I like that they have an additional currency that you can use to merge up units. And I think that's a great thing they did. I would love to see more of that, although I don't know if I necessarily want to see more currency. I think Panette is a good way to go merge project wise. Now I believe you said that she was going to be your next upgrade to Hans, is that correct? Yeah, absolutely. She is definitely in the pipeline, and I think for last year Cyril was that unit for many people because he was a range unit with the trainee BSD, which isn't really all that common for these Grail units. I've actually been a fan of what they've been doing with the Grail units in general. I know for my top 5 worst episode, I usually try to include a Grail unit, and I had a hard time getting one in. Like they did a decent job designing those, and I think Cyril was a great example of that. Moving us on though, I've got here fodder is critical once a year. Really what this is the amount of fodder that is critical is very low. And PM1, you talked about this year, I think you had 3 total skills. Yeah, for me, it definitely has to be Breath of Life, Lagoose Friend, and Shield Fighter. I'm probably going to be getting like 2 more by the end of this year, I think, with just being absolutely meta influential, maybe a tier 4 save. But yeah, those skills are probably something you want to focus on with your Pharma units, with your rearmed units, because these skills are, the skill that you want to run on most of your units if you want to use them at, the peak performance. The other thing I will say here is be very careful about the attuned and rearmed trap, because sometimes it can get a little overwhelming just trying to get merges on your attuned and rearmed units. You also have to be very careful with that. Again, 3,600 orbs. That is
it for the year if you're a free-to-play player. The last little high note I want to put in here. There is, again, 113 new equipables. The downside to this is the being able to actually get through all of that and figure out what you need is very difficult. The upside is I don't think there has ever been a time in Feh where you can customize a unit more than right now. And I've actually got my hopefully soon Sharena build that I've been looking at, and we'll see when I actually pull the trigger on this because these things are very expensive, but it's neat to think that you can put a day one Asker unit and get this many things going on them. Now, is it expensive? Absolutely, but this is something that even with free-to-play units like Seteth can be a lot of fun to do. Is your Mercedes this invested? Are we going to get a Mercedes showcase anytime soon?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My Mercedes is just till the brim with the premium fodder. I've got Magic Shield Plus, everything, and I'm just waiting for the healer attuned skills, like I said.
Soon. I believe soon we'll have something fun like that. But this shows both the amount of customization and the complexity creep as well. This is so many different effects that you're putting on Sharena. The other thing I'll mention, and we've been discussing this, but that total of 140 extra stats is one more than what an OG Azura's base BST is. How crazy is that?
It's just a lot of stats, but unfortunately nowadays, more stats don't always mean better results. So we have to be a bit cautious and stack in effects like Seteth and his flat damage reduction and such to really make these units work.
Absolutely, and it is nice that we get decent free-to-play refines like Seteth. That's something that really helps us as we go. All right, so with all of that, is there any final word of wisdom you have to the Feh faithful?
Probably not overinvest too much in certain skills after seeing Breath of Life 4 and such. I feel like they're gonna be pulling the trigger on the flat damage reduction because we're getting it too much. It's a bit too good to be true. I was thinking maybe in Chooser Legends we get the piercing, but yeah, I'm kind of waiting out to see what they do with that. But it seems like they're just giving a lot of skills for tanking nowadays with, Shield Fighter, Lagoo's Friend, Breath of Life 4, all of these skills. So before that, we just had an era of nukes where it was so hard to tank, but now they're kind of moving to the other side where we have more tanks and, tanks with so much bulk like Emblem Ike. So it really depends which type of unit people like to face more. Personally, I like facing nukes more because at least they die. When it comes to stuff like Emblem Ike, maybe there's going to be recency bias, but yeah, that's a lot more annoying with all of the tools that we have got nowadays.
The other thing with tanks is they're just more expensive to build because for the most part, every stat matters. I mean, you have your exceptions like Ike, but you really want all of your stats really boosted up as much as possible. Whereas nukes, you get, you need attack and speed, and then you're usually pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to tank, but we just see so much roll compression nowadays on units. Like, you gotta tank, you gotta provide warp bubble, you gotta do the taxes, everything you have to do. So it's probably gonna be going up with the time.
You've gotta do the taxes? Is that something that you think about? Is this all the penalties are actually just taxes?
Yeah, that is my dream power creep where my Feh unit does my taxes.
You know what? I will put that in the suggestions. Maybe just like them rolling back the legendary change, this will be something that they do where these units actually do our taxes as well. Well, thank you so much for sitting down. This has been amazing. I am going to put up a link to PM1's latest video here. I know you guys have all seen it. What I will say is please, like, if you can, super chats help out so much, and that is something, especially for someone like PM1, who is very much the lifeblood of this game when it comes to YouTube. It helps him out do his stuff just a ton. If you can send those his way, I know how much he appreciates those, and I know how much work he does. I mean, it is. How many videos are you putting out a week now?
It's definitely somewhere around 5 to 6.
That's incredible. So almost every day of the week, you've got a new PM1 video. So if you can help out there, that would be great. Other than that, take care and schedule an appointment with your Fehology just real soon.